Gemara, we saw in the Gemara that when a lady has a period, there's a question: how far back do we have to, or don't we have to, be concerned that maybe she saw already the blood already left her the uterus and left her inside of her womb. And morning, what this good to see you, Richie? How are you? And it went to her outer part of her womb. So we had different opinions regarding that. So just also, I think maybe it's interesting to note we have regarding you know nida, regarding a woman when she has a period. We also have a very interesting halacha about when do we expect her to have her next period. That means there's a special law that person has to separate, not to have relations with his wife at a time when he expects her to have her period. That means, let's say if she had a period today, morning Richie, and there is a general rule, there's something called ona benenit, that most women, it's very common that women see a period every 30 days. So therefore, if she had a period, let's say last night, so she would count 30 days, and then at that time period, they would not have relations because of the expectance of her having a period at that time. There's another thing that we take into consideration. Good morning, Ralph. Is the Hebrew date of the month. The date of the Hebrew date of the month also has an influence on her period. Let's say if she saw on Hey Nisan, so then Hey ER is also a date that she'd have to be concerned about seeing blood, and dependent on how many days of the month, if a month has 29 days or a month has 30 days, whether the 30-day concern and the day of the month, well, it will coincide, be the same day or not. And then there's another thing that we have, something called haflaga. Haflaga is if the lady had a period, she had a period, let's say she had a period today, last night she had a period, and the time beforehand she had a period 33 days before. So if she had a period 33 days before, so that's also, and that's most probably the most common, that there's a good chance she's going to have a period 33 days later. And that also would be a time that they would not have relations. So that is a very, here when our Gemara discusses, when the lady saw blood, how far back we have to worry. So here we have a situation in halacha, when a lady sees blood, how much we have to be concerned in the future regarding the prediction of a period. Just to bring everybody up to date, we were just mentioning, Adam, Amici, that our Gemara spoke about if a lady has a period in the time of the Beis Hamikdash, when they had truma, how far back do we have to be concerned that maybe she already became manida earlier, before this moment? Morning, Ralph.
Morning, Rabbi.
All right, right. She sees right. She sees blood, and now the question is how far back. Maybe it's possible that the blood already. The word nida comes from the word nut. Like I said, nud is that movement. There was movement of blood. That's what needs this. If the blood goes from the inner side of the uterus and it goes to the outer part of the uterus, it goes to the outer part by the womb, even though it didn't even come out, she's already in idah. So how would she know? Right. So now do you just say, once we see it, we only have to be concerned for when we see it, or do you have to be concerned how far do you have to go back? Do you have to go back all the way to the last time she made an inspection? So that is the question of the Gemara. We had three opinions in the Gemara about that, and the rabbis, the last opinion we said was that if her last inspection was a couple of days ago, they would only have to be concerned for the last 24 hours, whatever she might have touched within the last 24 hours. But if she had a inspection, let's say in the morning, 10 o'clock in the morning, and then she sees at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, so she doesn't have to worry 24 hours. She made an inspection in the morning, so we have to worry between the inspection in the morning and now maybe there was some movement of blood, and that's the only thing that she would have to be concerned about. Morning, Asaf. So now we said a fascinating thing. The Gemara is talking about concern. How far back do we have to be concerned? And maybe the truma became tamei, because if she handled truma when she's in nidah, that will contaminate truma, and then truma would have to be burnt. We were just talking about that's about what happened when maybe she had a period earlier. Maybe she became neither earlier. I was mentioning to Nathan that in practical terms today, we have a very big concern. We reckon very strongly when a lady has a period today. What about to predict? We predict when is she going to see next? Because you have to be concerned. You don't want to. It's a very big sin to sleep with a lady when she's in nidah. So if she has a period today, and the last time she had a period was 33 days ago, there's a good chance she's going to see a period 33 days from now. So therefore, Adam, you're going to learn about it when you get engaged, Bez Hashem. You'll see that she would have to have 33, if she had a period 33 days ago, so then let's say she has a period today, and the last time was 33 days ago, she's going to now, 33 days from now, she's going to mark her calendar, she's going to mark that date, and her husband and her are off that night.
When do you have
right. So some women work like a clock. That means every month it's exactly every 29 days, every 33 days, every 34 days. If they have that type of clock, so they know that's the day they have to be concerned about. But most women don't have an exact clock. So even let's say this past month they saw 33 days were between each scene, and the next month it was 31 days. So they marked the calendar and they got to, let's say this month was 33, we got to watch out for 33. Next month was 31, we got to watch out for 31. But then there's also additional days additional time that may be to be concerned is like the 30th day is a day that's very common also for ladies to be. So therefore she would have to be off the 30th also. She would mark the calendar. Say it again. Right. So that will also be something if she feels something's coming, she should say away. So that's just something about predicting regarding nidah. That's a practical halacha that we deal with today, just to make sure that people won't come to violate the sin of sleeping with a nidah. So that's just a little bit about connecting to the Gemara that we had yesterday. So the last thing we were up to yesterday on 15a, Botzalagat, we were saying that the Gemara said there were 3 cases that Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel, that not Beit Shammai, Hillel and Shammai themselves argued, where nobody before them argued. Meaning there are many cases that maybe there were earlier rabbis that argued, different rabbis took different positions, and Hillel and Shammai also took a position. That can be many, many cases. But cases that the whole dispute, the whole argument was only between Shammai and Hillel. There was no one else that previously argued on those 2 cases. Those were only 3 cases, the Gemara said. The Gemara is listing those cases. And at this point, the Gemara says, what do you mean? I got a 4th case. I got another case. Va'ika kabotzelagat. We have another case. This is where 15a. What are we? 15a, probably 4. 15a4 on the first column at the bottom. Habotzelagat. Someone who goes ahead and he's harvesting his grapes. Now, and the purpose of his harvesting the grapes, he wants to go ahead and he wants to have the wine from these grapes, and that's the purpose, to make the wine from these grapes. That's why he's doing it now. Shammai says, Huchsha. And what happened? A little bit of the juice, good morning, Nathan, a little bit of the juice came out from the grapes onto the grapes. And we said yesterday, there's a rule.
Is that desired or not desired liquid?
Great. Okay. Because you're harvesting the grapes, you want to go ahead and you're looking now to press the grapes. You want it, you're not looking to eat the grapes, right? You're looking to press the grapes because you want its wine. So you want the wine, but this wine, what happens if the wine, if the basket that you have, good morning, Akiva, is going, there's holes in the basket, right? There's two types of baskets. You have a basket that could hold the wine that falls into the basket, which you definitely would want that wine because you're looking to drink wine. So every ounce of wine that comes out of the grapes that collects in the basket will be you're very happy. You want it to go onto the grape. You're happy that it came out. But the one, if you have a basket, okay, I mean, at this point, the language, you mean, let's address what Nathan is talking about. Let's give a little background. We said if you have a fruit, let's take a fruit, an apple, an orange. Once you cut the apple or the orange off the tree, in order for it to receive contamination from someone who's contaminated or a dead animal, it has to have a wetness, as Richie says, right, a liquid that you're happy to go onto this fruit. Let's say if you wash the fruit, you want the liquid to go on the fruit, or you want the fruit to remain fresh, or whatever it is, you don't want to dry out. So then you wanted the liquid to go onto the fruit. Then that wanting the liquid to go into the fruit will prepare the fruit for now it could receive contamination. If no liquid goes on the fruit is not ready to be contaminated, even though a dead thing, animal came in contact, will not contaminate it. Even if liquid does go on it, then there's 7 liquids that have the ability to contaminate. Let's talk about water is definitely one of them. Even if it went on it, but if you did not have a desire, you did not want it to go on, then it will not prepare it for contamination.
You know, you've got a fruit or a food, and it's truma, or you're going to give it for truma, and you don't want it to be contaminated. And you say to yourself, I don't care what liquid touches it, even among the 7 that are permitted or susceptible, make it susceptible. I don't want it to be contaminated. You've then protected it.
So it sounds like you protected it, but we know. Right. But the question is, but we know, if you say I don't want it, but then you wash the fruit, so it's obvious. Then it's not. I don't know if it's real, that type of kavanah. When you're showing what
Spritzes on it that you didn't intend for the water.
Okay, we have to look more.
Once you wash it, replace your kavanah of before that you didn't want it to be touched.
Right.
But if you just have, I want to give this to my Kohen, I don't want it to be contaminated, and you don't do anything else other than take it to him, doesn't matter what spritzes on it.
That's what it sounds like, because it said you have to want the water to come onto it. So what happened here is we're dealing with a basket that, let's say, has a hole on the bottom. So you do not want the wine to come out. You don't want it to go on, because it's going to come out. It's going to get lost. So you're not looking for the liquid to go onto the fruit. Why? Because there's a hole in the basket. And if the liquid comes out of the grape that goes on the fruit, it's going to fall. Right, exactly. Wine is one of the 7. Wine is one of the 7.
But there's
if it can, Richard might have to, but
they leave without a hole.
But it has to be from the 7 liquids, Richie. Meaning, it could right. It could be, meaning pomegranate juice. Yeah. I don't believe would be. It's not one of the 7. You know what I'm saying? So, but wine is one of the 7. Mm-hmm. So now, wine, water, blood. These are some of the. These are some of the 7.
When would somebody ever want blood to touch his food?
That's a good question. What would be the case that person would want it? But a good question. Why would a person want it? But if a person would be happy that it touched it, he would be it would prepare it. Well, I think one is maybe honey. I think is one of them. We'll have to look. Well, maybe we'll
Date honey or bee honey?
date honey. We'll see. We'll see.
Siman.
Yeah, we'll look. Maybe tomorrow I'll bring in the listing of the seven liquids. So now, right. So it's an eclipse. If it has no holes, so you're very happy. You're happy that you're meaning it's no problem to you. You're happy that it came out because you're pressing the grapes anyways. You're gonna be pressing the grapes anyways. Happy for the liquid. But here, well, let's say the case here we're talking about is that the basket had holes in it. And now the liquid is coming out, but the liquid is going to it's going to be lost because it's going to go down, you're going to go through the bottom of the basket. But even though that's the case, but the question is, do we have to make a gzeirah? Are we going to say that if you're going to, are we going to say because of the situation when the liquid will not be lost, so we're going to say, yes, you got the seven listing?
Dew, water, wine, oil, blood, milk, and honey.
Okay, very good. That's the seven. Very
Wine
good.
is specifically grape juice, not wine. And oil is specifically olive oil, not any oil.
Very good.
Blood is the blood of mammals or fowl. Milk only produced by mammals. And honey specifically bees honey and not date honey.
Oh, so it's bees honey, not date honey. So I'm corrected.
Mammals or fowl.
Animal. Okay, so it's again it's bee honey. Okay, so the Gemara says, so habotze lagat. If a person went ahead and he cut the grapes in order because he wanted to press them to make wine, Beishamai Omer, not Beishamai, Shammai Omer Hochsher. Shammai says we're going to consider the grapes prepared for receiving contamination, even though the wine is going to go to the ibud, it's going to get lost, because we're going to make as a fence, as a decree, because of the case when you're going to use a basket that has no holes. So if you're going to have wine, grapes in a basket that has holes, and you're going to say that the liquid that comes out and touches the grapes does not prepare it, because technically you don't want that wine to come out. People will make the mistake and say that even when it's in the basket, even when the wine is not going to waste, grape juice, whatever you want to, the liquid from the grapes, well, it's the liquid from the grapes, and people will make that mistake. Right, very good. Right, exactly. Bishama, this is his concern, this is stringency. And Hillel says, Hillel says, we don't make that zero. We're not going to be so strict. If the basket is insulated, that there's no holes in the basket, and the wine and the liquid, the grape juice will remain in the basket, then of course you're happy that it's there. You don't mind that, you're happy that it's there. That because you're gonna squeeze it anyway. But if it has holes in the basket, it's the wine coming. You don't want the wine coming out. You don't want it to touch. You're not happy that this wine should go out on the grape juice. The grape juice should come out onto the fruit. So therefore, it will not prepare it. It's not considered prepared to receive contamination. Ibud is lost. It means when there's holes in the basket, we call it, the terminology is it's holech leibud. It's kind of like bohu ha'ovdim be'eretz ashur. That pasuk. Oved is lost. Aveda is a lost item. Hashavat aveda. So when the liquid is going to go to the ground because it's holes, that's called holech leibud. It's going to be lost. So
what's the word when you have a full year with Adar, Shana? There's a word that's similar to Muberet. So that's a different word.
Oh, right. It's a different word. That's from being pregnant. You have a double extra month. it's called muberet, like a pregnant woman, in being enlarged. Uh, that's the word. This is ibud, like the shorish is avad, aleph, bed, dalet. And that's ayin. Iburet is ayin, beis, resh. Is just the no problem. So the Gemara says, so we found the fourth case, the Gemara said. You told me there's only three cases that Shammai and Hillel themselves, personally, just have disputes. And we found the fourth case. So the Gemara says, you can't count that. Why? Ba mine dahi. Don't ask me. This is not a question. Why is not a question? The hatam kashatik le Hillel Shammai. When in this specific case about the cutting of the grapes and the liquid goes from the grapes onto the grapes itself, and it was in the basket. Morning, Mr. Haber. Hillel changed his mind because what happened was when they had a discussion, when there was a discussion between Shammai and Hillel, when they discussed the matter, eventually Hillel he admitted to the position, he changed his position because morning Solomon, because Torah is emet, and if the fact that a rabbi felt one way today, if he sees the other position, he changes his mind, and it doesn't happen so often, but that's what Hillel he admitted to the position of Shammai, and he changed his position, and therefore it's not, even though at one time this was a case that they argued, and therefore that would have been, right, Akiva, case number 4. But once Hillel changed his mind, and he went ahead and he said, no, I agree with Shammai. So again, we only have 3 cases on record that are different. So now the Gemara continues. Yossi ben Yoezer Isreda. We said Yossi ben Isreda, he came from the town in Israel called Sreda. The Yossi ben Yochanan, Ish Yerushalayim. And Yossi ben Yochanan, he was a man from Jerusalem, he came from Jerusalem. Gozru Tumah al Eretz Amim. The Gemara says they instituted Tumah on lands outside of Israel, that if you leave Israel, you go into land outside of Israel. We said earlier that the non-Jewish world were not so careful about burying their bodies, marking graves, burying them in specific places. They would bury them anywhere. And because of that, when there's plowing done, there's digging that's done, which is an issue sometimes we find in Israel as well, when other places when they're not respectful, when they do archaeological digs and they find bones come out. So through plowing, there could be pieces of bones of the corpse of the dead body, and if a person comes in contact with the size of a barley, a bone, the size of a barley, if you touch that, that will contaminate the person. That's Jewish or non-Jewish. A non-Jewish dead person if a Jew comes in contact with a non-Jewish bone, a size of a barley, it will contaminate etzem k'tzora. A bone the size of a barley, tzora is one of the 7 shivas minim we know. Shivat aminim is the tzora, is barley, chita tzora. And if a person comes in contact with that, will make it contaminated. Therefore, because of the fact that, like Nathan said, they didn't mark the graves could have been up through plowing, could be pieces of the body, could be by the ground area, and you might be coming in contact. It might be already up by the surface, and you might be coming in contact with that. So therefore, as a result of that, the rabbi said we got to create. Morning, Morris. We're going to create tumah. That if you leave the land of Israel, in Israel, where they're very careful, you don't have to worry. You don't say that you become contaminated, but outside the land of Israel, you become contaminated. And if you subsequently will come in contact with truma, you will now contaminate the truma. You will actually have to go through the process of the efer paraduma, of the ashes of the paraduma. Outside the land of Israel, if you want to go, before you come in contact with Truma, where you want to go ahead and go to the Beit HaMikdash, you have to consider yourself as if you were contaminated by a dead person, an avatuma, and you would have to go to do the whole process. So the Gemara says, we stated that fact that these were the rabbis, this was the pair of rabbis that made, and they made a zera also on kli zechuchit, on glass. That glass is not one of the materials that are listed in the Torah that has the ability to contract contamination, to become contaminated. But they placed a gzeira. We're going to see the Gemara is going to discuss why they made the gzeira on the glass. They said glass becomes contaminated. Just on a practical note, we know that regarding mikveh, if you buy a glass utensil from a Gentile, rabbinic on a Torah level, also it's not listed as one of the items that require mikveh when you buy from a Gentile, but rabbinically, you buy glasses, you have to go ahead and dip them in the mikveh, and you say a bracha before you dip them in the mikveh. It's a rabbinic mitzvah to dip your glasses into the mikveh. So the Gemara says, "V'harabanan d'shmonim shana gazor." These gzerot were enacted by the rabbis 80 years before the destruction of the second Beit HaMikdash, which the Gemara at this point is going to say that this pair of rabbis lived much earlier than 80 years before the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash. So the Gemara says, the Amar of Kahana. Rav Kahana says the following: Kishechala Rabbi Yishmael b'Rabbi Yossi. When Rabbi Yishmael, the son of Rabbi Yossi, became sick, Shocholo Chachamim, the rabbis sent him a message. Rabbi, Omer lanu shnayim u'shlosha dvarim shamatu mishum avicha. Tell us 2 or 3 things that were said in the name of your father. Your father was, one of the leading rabbis. Please tell us what teach us some Torah that you heard from your father. Sholach lahem. I mean, it's interesting that it says when he was sick, they asked him, tell us some things from your father. Maybe they were concerned that he was going to pass away, and maybe he's the one who was privy to his father's Torah. So please tell us a couple of things from your father. So shalach lahem. So he sent back the following message. He says, Kach Abba. This is what my father said. Mea u'shmonim shana ashel charva bayit. 180 years before the destruction of the second Beit HaMikdash, Pashta Malchut HaRasha'a al Yisrael. The wicked government of Rome already started taking power, political power over the Jewish people. Remember, the story of Hanukkah was about 190 years into the second Beit HaMikdash. You had about 200, I think it's very recall, had around 210 years left from the miracle of Hanukkah to the destruction, right, Mr. Haber? The miracle of Hanukkah, the destruction of the second Beit HaMikdash is around 200 or so years. But already by 180 years left to the second destruction,
that's 20, 30 years after
Hanukkah, right? We defeated the Greeks, and the Romans became more dominant. They stretched their wings over us until they finally destroyed. 180 years later, the Romans were the ones who destroyed the actual temple, the Beit HaMikdash. But it was 180 years they already spread their wings over us. Shmonim shana ashel l'chorva bayit. 80 years. Now remember, a lot of Jews were outside of the land of Israel. Most Jews did not come back for the building of the Beit HaMikdash. You had a lot of Jews in Babel, like you have today, America, Israel. There was Babylon, and Israel. So they made a decree 80 years before, Gazu Tumal Eretz Amim, for destruction of the second temple.
At that point, 80% of the Roman Empire was Jewish, and that's what they talked about at the Colosseum. If you look to the right, you look to the left, they were all Jews in the stands, sort of like at the Knicks.
Well,
Rahav.
right. And they made a tumah. That's when they made tumah al eretz amim, kli zechuchit. They made they said contamination. They made these decrees at that time. I wonder, I'm just thinking out loud a little bit, b'derech drush, that it could be that the rabbis, the idea of tumah by the Greeks, they were temu kol hashmanim. They intended to contaminate. They want to take away the purity of the Jewish people. So I wonder if and that's why why did they have to contaminate? They were looking for every jar of oil that they got. They wanted to touch it. They knew if they handle it, they move it, they're going to contaminate because they understand they want to defile, take the spiritual. So I wonder if the rabbis, the rabbis were sensitive to that idea of we have to increase purity. So they made this decree on, if they were coming to take away the purity, we have to increase our purity. Now we're talking about the wrong, right, but done with the Greeks, but still the concept that there's still that influence, the ideas of contamination. We want to strengthen our purity. So they
make glasses impure or susceptible, then Jews can't go to the Roman taverns and mix with the Romans. So it's trying to keep us slightly separate from them.
Right. But we'll see more about the Kli. Okay. So they made a tumah on the land of the Gentiles. Then Arboim Shana Asher L'Chorva Bayit, 40 years before the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed, Goltala Sanhedrin. There was a problem among the Jewish people. There was a lot of murders going on, and as a result of that, the rabbis decided that we're not going to see. The language here sounds like there's so many murders that it was hard for them to judge all the people, and it says that they moved the Sanhedrin out from the Lishkat HaGazit. There was a special place by the Hadara, the chamber, right, where the Sanhedrin sat. And in order for them to judge cases, murder cases, capital punishment, the Sanhedrin had to be in that place. But if the Sanhedrin is not sitting in that chamber by the Beit HaMikdash, by the courtyard of the Beit HaMikdash, then you cannot judge capital cases. So they moved, because now we'll see tomorrow a little bit, we'll look more into, the fact that you can't judge all the cases, so but judge whatever you can. So why did they just go ahead and say we can't judge everything? Too many murderers, we're not judging. They said we're not judging the case. We're not going to be judging the cases of murder.
Were they complimented or criticized for doing?
It seems so far I don't think we found a criticism for it. We'll see more maybe tomorrow about it. And where did they go? They moved to a place on the Temple Mount, not in the courtyard area, but a Temple Mount. It says, what did they do? The Yoshvil B'Chaniyot. There was a place in the Har HaBayit that was called Chaniyot in the Temple Mount. That's where they went ahead and it's called Chaniyot, but that's the name of the place. But right, right. So there's a special law that the only place that the rabbis could go, the only time the rabbis could have the power, there's a special teaching that they have to be in that place. And by the way, once they're there, you had courts of 23 judges. Could be other places have the power. It's not only the court that there has to go ahead and judge the cases, but they are the battery for all the other courts. Meaning a Jewish court to judge capital punishment, you have to have a court of 23 judges. So let's say in Tel Aviv, in order for them to judge in Tel Aviv, there's a murder in Tel Aviv, they don't go to the old city to judge the case. They'll judge in Tel Aviv. But Tel Aviv has a court of 23 that will judge capital punishment, minimum of 23. But they in Tel Aviv only have the right to judge if there's if the court in Washington, in Washington, the court is in session. If they're in session, then everything you can judge. Lishkat HaGazit, that's the place. But if they're not in session there, they're out, then you can't judge anywhere. Anyway, that was the. We'll continue.
There must be a reason for this.
Right. So tomorrow we'll go more into the reason why, because there's so many, what this is based on. Have a great day. We welcome Richie. It's been a little while. It's great to have you with your comments. We always like people's involvement. Thank you. All the best. Thank you, Mr. Haber. Take care, Morris. Good to have you, Ralph. Have a great day.